99-cent rental.
This is 99 Cent Rental. I'm your host, Brian White, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Dave White. Hey, Dave, how you doing over there?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm all right. I was going to hit you with a recommendation.
All right.
I've been listening to, have you ever listened to the 16th Minute
Nope.
podcast? It's Jamie Loftus's podcast. She's a writer, I guess comedian and writer, written some books and stuff. So she just did a 4-part podcast on the Hawktua girl. You know, are you familiar? Familiar with the Hawktua girl?
I know who she is. Yeah, I don't. What do I need to know about this?
Well, I started out thinking.
Oh shit, that's right. Because she said she wasn't gonna have 15 minutes of fame, and so all of her shit was like 16 minutes is what it was branded as.
Yeah. So I started out and I was thinking like, why do I give a shit about the Hawktua girl? This is one of the few internet things I actually am aware of. And so I listened to this, and she sort of like traces her whole arc. And you forget that all of this happened in like a span of 5 months. Yeah. She goes from being some drunk girl outside of a bar to a millionaire. And then she gets roped into some crypto scheme.
Yeah.
And like does like the rug pull con. And then she disappears. And it is fucking crazy. The whole story is super insane. But it... as is well established on here, I'm not a terribly online person. I have very little use for it. I do not care for it. But Jamie Loftus like tries to contextualize the whole thing within sort of the arc of, I guess, creator culture. Yeah. And so as someone who does not really engage in most of this or am pretty unfamiliar with it, I wasn't really aware of all these people that are famous for no reason. And she's like playing clips of stuff like the Logan Paul and like all these people. Now, as someone who does not pay attention to any of this, I'm listening to these clips. I thought I was going to have a goddamn panic attack. It's just like these assholes screaming into a camera or a microphone in like the worst possible way. It's like they all seem like a caricature.
Yeah, there's a guy on YouTube, YouTuber, if you will, named Jabri or Jabri is how he goes, and his sort of bread and butter is he does these periodically releases these like long form video essays that are kind of teardowns on these people, because what eventually comes to pass is every single one of them sort of achieves this zenith of fame where they are just fucking ubiquitous and you can't get away from them, and you know who they are even though you've never seen a second of their stuff, and every single one of them turns out to be like a high functioning sociopath.
Yeah, like a real sack of shit.
Like really, really, really bad. Like they if they don't get kicked off of Twitch, then they sort of, or I mean, YouTube, they go to Twitch, and then they eventually do something so fucking heinous over there that they get kicked off of Twitch and have to go to places like Rumble or Kick, which
now,
is like,
I only know that what those two are. Rumble, I know what it is because it's like the white supremacist one.
Yeah. And
Kick is the other one that I know because that's like the one that I read a thing about how like pedophiles were using it to lure children.
Yeah, that's the one where you can like you're not. They don't exactly discourage it, but you're not encouraged either to use say crystal methamphetamine on feed or commit sex crimes on feed. They also have a much higher payout than YouTube and Twitch.
So really quality people.
So it's basically a place for human traffickers and pedophiles. And just it's kind of amazing that nobody has committed a murder on Kick yet.
That you know of.
Yeah, that we know of. But like there's some guys who like their entire thing on Kick is they go to some foreign country and then they make a fucking nuisance of themselves in such a way that
Logan Paul.
No, well, Logan Paul is kind of above that now. He's sort of legitimized his shit, but like he's the worst. But there's a guy named Johnny Somali who, last I knew, had, I believe, had his passport seized by the South Korean authorities. And so he's kind of trapped in Seoul.
Nice.
And so now every single time he goes outside, there's like a bounty placed on him where you are encouraged to find him and beat him up on stream.
Nice. It's like a video game.
It's like the most dystopian RoboCop shit I've ever seen. But yeah, like I mean, like above a certain like income line, or rather like follower count, in order to really sort of stay there and maintain your sort of level of fame or infamy, you have to be essentially like you have to be the sort of person who's like scheming and psychotic as like a serial killer, but without the drive to murder. Like it's such a fucking bizarre way of living that like when you see those people, you kind of recoil. Like they don't even have to say anything. You just see them, or you just see a picture of them, and you just kind of like know instinctively that this person is fucking evil.
Well, so that's the interesting thing about this Haktua thing, is that she basically like ends up kind of cultivating two separate personas. One that is like her, you know, like, shucks, y'all, I'm just a folksy girl from wherever the fuck she's from.
Tennessee,
and
I think
the other one is like her Twitter X persona, which is like, hey y'all, I'm getting into crypto. And it's just like, whoa, these are two very different people. You can tell she's being being pulled in one direction by like, I don't know, like her friends, and like, you know, she's kind of young and she's stupid, and she's, you know, seems nice enough, I guess. I don't really know her, so it doesn't matter. But, and then like these other fucking scumbags who are just like, well, what you ought to do is hawk this fake money.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of, I believe, ex-Barstool Sports people who,
yes,
just to begin with, kind of suck.
Yeah, so I am just being exposed for like 4 hours to the worst personalities I have ever encountered. And I was like, is this what the internet is now?
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah. I think for most people, like if you want to be one of these people who is famous for nothing, you know, like
well, see, that's the problem, is that when you don't actually have any skill or creativity or like a personality to like actually do something and be famous for something, you just kind of have nothing else to offer. So you got to keep like upping the ante. The next thing you know, you're in like Japan suicide forest, like poking a dead body.
Yeah. But yeah, she was one of the people that when I first saw her, I don't want to get too deep in the fucking weeds on this, but when I first saw her, I was like, well, that's fucking stupid. And then she kept popping back up. Like somebody had found a way to kind of transform this sort of like singular moment that in the past would have just been like a fucking meme that would have been like, I don't know, auto-tuned to some like trap beat. But like they'd found a way to sort of extend it into this kind of like, I don't know, micro empire. And then like the rug pull thing happened with the Hawk coin or Tua coin, whatever they fucking called it. And she fell on the sort of receiving end of tremendous amounts of internet scorn because the guys who set her up for that essentially left her holding the bag.
Yeah, it was Howie Mandel's son-in-law.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's a fucking wild story.
Eventually I eventually kind of softened on her and realized that she'd been sort of taken for a ride and exploited, and it wasn't exactly her fault, but I could understand her drive to sort of want to kind of turn this into something, something that she could kind of get paid on. Cause I would love to get paid for something fucking dumb. You know?
No, I mean, that's the thing, is like, you kind of feel a little bit sorry for her, and you're like a little sympathetic. Cause it's like, well, you know, you work at a factory, you're like 22, like, yeah, fucking cash in, especially since the guys who like started the whole thing with their, you know, interview on the street thing, total fucking scumbags.
Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about them, but I can only assume that they're just like that. That's what they do, is they get all of their streaming equipment out and they tool up, and then they just kind of like prowl Beale Street or whatever and
looking for drunk ladies.
Yeah, like at like midnight, waiting for people to sort of stumble out of bars, and then they just kind of like stuff a microphone in their face for content. You know, it's
really gross. But point is, it was a really interesting thing. The podcast is called 16th Minute. It's really fun.
I'll have to check that out. I'm interested. I know enough to be interested, so maybe I'll check that one out.
Play a bunch of clips of her podcast, the Talk to a podcast.
Oh God.
And it is fucking painful. She is so bad at interviewing people.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some clips of it, and it's tragic. But she was like, at one point, her podcast was like challenging Joe Rogan for supremacy on like Apple Podcasts and shit.
And I know what kind of numbers that takes. And
that is insane, because I also have a little insight into that as well, and to know that at one time she was like coming up on his heels is a little crazy.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's what I got. That's what I got for everybody.
All right. Yeah.
I'm just here to help.
There you go. 16th minute. Check it out. So, hey, it's hard to explain to someone who never had the experience what a trip to the video store was like back in the day. The shelves were choked with absolutely bizarre crap made on tiny budgets, completely divorced from any recognizable reality, and it was the best. We intend to talk about every one of them. Just before we get into it, just a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram at Bring Me the Axe Pod. Dave's over there at That Queerwolf.
Mm-hmm.
Do yourself a favor. Give us a follow. You know, yeah. We'll enrich your life.
Yeah.
You know, no, we'll never, I'll guarantee you this. You know, you follow us, we'll never hawk a meme coin.
That's true. Well, I can't, I
don't know. Well, we're going to mint Axe coin.
Oh,
I guarantee everybody get in on the ground level. You're going to make millions, baby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also on TikTok. If you do that sort of thing, look us up by name over there. And
just still out there, just shaking it like a bowl of soup, as my friend Otis Redding used to say.
like a bowl of soup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I suppose. Like I don't necessarily shake it because I don't want soup going everywhere.
Well, yeah. I don't know why he went with bowl of soup. It doesn't.
Bowl of jelly.
Yeah,
that would have been that's thinking. Look us up by name over there. And if you don't know, we have another show called Bring Me the Axe. Our latest episode. Shit, I fucked this one up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to pass that one by because we're recording this way ahead of time. I don't know what's coming next. Sorry. But you can contact us directly at 99centrentalpod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a cheesy movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business.
Yeah, give us suggestions, because I was looking at the schedule and I was like, there's an awful lot of Asian movies on here.
we gotta soften that up. What, do you got something against Asian people?
Well, no. No, I just thought, we gotta mix it up. We want
our schedule's full, but man, it's not set in stone. We can.
Oh dear God, no. We changed it a million times last year.
Yeah, we did.
And I'm gonna do it again.
Just try and stop us.
Mm-hmm. I already did it you were totally unaware of what I've done.
Oh, I think I noticed it. I was like, oh, really? That one? That would have been fun.
I mean, we can find another space for it.
Yeah. Anyway, you can also contact us directly at 99cent Rental Pod, unless you did it to something else too. I'm gonna have to look.
I guess we'll figure it out.
You can contact us directly at 99centrentalpod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Oh boy, that's the one that I just said. I'm fucking this up. What is going on? Anyway, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can look us up over there at patreon.com/bringmetheaxpod. There's a couple of tiers you can join there. Subscribers at the $5 a month tier can look forward to our bi-weekly X-Files rewatch pod. Do you think I'm spooky? We've also got our Millennium Edition, Bring Me the Axe Millennium Edition, where, we're looking at modern horror movies made within the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yep. As well as my bi-weekly DJ show, Radio Free Haddonfield, in the weeks when Do You Think I'm Spooky is off. Yeah, you can expect a surprising mixtape of everything from rock to disco to punk over there. Once again, that's patreon.com/bringmetheaxpod.
Give us your money.
Oh, yeah, and speaking of giving us money, we've got merch.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and it's mighty fine.
I thought you were going to say it's free. I was going to be like, no, it's not free. What the fuck are you talking about?
Jesus Christ, no. What do you think? You think I'm crazy?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's check the show notes. You get the URL there. Go over, get yourself a hoodie. Get yourself a t-shirt. Get your friends a hoodie or a t-shirt.
Get your doctor one. Get one for your sister or your mom.
Yeah. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube now. Search us by name. Subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I love seeing those.
I also welcome more soup recipes, more stew recipes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? And anybody's got good healthy dinner recipes. Hit me with one of those.
Oh yeah, we got a nice stew recipe. I got a recipe on YouTube for some tacos.
Nice.
Yeah. Like people be giving us food recommendations. I
All
like
right.
that. Yeah. If you listen on YouTube, do us a favor, give the episode a like and leave a comment. We love hearing from you guys. I just want to get it all out of the way right at the top of the show because I'm about to run a trailer for tonight's movie, and it's in Japanese. So I want to give you, I was considering not running the trailer simply because it's in Japanese and our listenership is primarily in English-speaking countries. Well, but the way everybody talks to each other in this movie is so particular.
Yeah, you'll get
this trailer is going to give you a sense because all the dialogue you hear is exactly how everybody talks to each other, and it is fucking fantastic. Here we go. Toho, it's a mark of quality.
Got it.
I love a trailer that right off the top, it gives you a decapitation.
Mm-hmm. World's chubbiest chubby samurai.
That's the good shit. That's the good shit right there. That's Lone Wolf and Cub's Sword of Vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is all of the dialogue, the way that everybody talks to each other.
I wish people talked to each other like that today. In any language.
I would love that. If everybody just kind of like grunted and growled, it's like snarled at each other. It would add a little bit of color to our language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fucking A. This here movie. I love a samurai movie, but I love these samurai movies more than others.
Yeah, I told you that if there was a series I could go back and watch again like it was the first time, it would be this.
Yeah.
I friggin' love it.
It really is a discovery because like as we're gonna find out, the man who made these movies made a lot of these kinds of movies. And the person who created the character in the manga also created some other characters from like a particular kind of samurai movie that was like really kind of I think made famous by Kill Bill, like I think to the Western audience really. But yeah, that explosive explosive bloody wounds, arterial spray, like these movies are so they're not just really violent, they're really gory and graphic.
Yeah, I would call it hyper violence.
It's fucking amazing. So let's go down the facts here, shall we?
Okay.
So the year was 1972, year of our Lord.
Beautiful.
So let me tell you about some other martial arts movies that were released in the year 1972. Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart at the River Styx came out in 1972.
Are they just going to be all Lone Wolf and Cub movies because they all were made in the same year?
Also, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart to Hades came out in 1972.
Now, see that one. That's one of my favorites.
That's a great one. Also, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Card in Peril came out in 1972. And that's it. There were 4 Lone Wolf and Cub movies released in 1972, all by the same director, all written by the same writer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably very easy that like a lot of the stuff that they're covering in this, they just adapted directly from the manga. So writing it and producing it must have been fairly easy, since it was already written.
Yeah. Yes. My understanding is that the studio was okay with what they were doing when they started doing the TV show. It was like a totally different deal, and they were like, "Oh no, you can't do any of this. Why are you doing this?"
Yeah. 1976 is when the comic wraps up, and I think 76 might have been when the TV show started.
Nobody liked it. I mean, people, the audiences may have liked it, but not the people who were involved in it.
God. Yeah, the TV version of Ogami Itto, he doesn't have the same charm,
No.
No. So we've also got, also in 1972, Fist of Fury, Bruce Lee movie came out.
Okay, I like that movie a lot too.
That's a great fucking movie right there. And Jimmy Wang Yu's first one-armed boxer movie came out.
Okay, I like that less.
Yeah. Eventually that series, the one-armed boxer, turns into Master of the Flying Guillotine, which is incredible.
See, I'm out of my depth here. I don't really know too much about a samurai.
All right. Well, I got you covered. Don't worry.
I mean, I have some favorites. I enjoy them. I enjoy watching them. I just don't know much about them.
Yeah. It's essentially the Japanese version of the, medieval feudal system with their strict caste systems and their royal courts and fucking warrior nobility, like the knights of medieval Europe. The samurai.
I liken them to they're like westerns.
So not all,
or the other way around.
We're going to talk. Well, kind of, because they're being produced at the same time, and they have the same sort of vibe. But like as I'm going to say, not all samurai movies are the same, but a particular kind of samurai movie are definitely playing the same sort of notes as American and Italian westerns.
I mean, you can even hear it in the soundtracks for these movies. The scores are very Italian.
They use, you know what it is? It's that I'm dying to know, because what is it? Adrian Young uses it a lot on the Black Dynamite score, and also on that Ghostface record. I think it's called 12 Reasons to Die. And it's this like really, really buzzy, distorted guitar effect that he uses. I would love to know what that effect is. I have no idea what it is, but they have the soundtrack to this has
like that, like fuzzy, the fuzz box kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's not exactly a fuzz box. It's all rasp and none of the sort of muted low end.
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that Alessandro Alessandroni probably either created that or popularized it.
Yeah, because also like you would hear that sound in
or Bruno Nicolai.
Anybody making like Eurospy soundtracks as well did them.
So they all made the same shit. Like it was no one was like, "Oh, I do westerns." No, they did everything.
Yeah. So our director is a dude named Kenji Misumi, and Jesus H. Christ was this dude busy,
and pretty wild life too.
Yeah. Yes, he was. He was. What was it? He was
in a Siberian prison for 4 years.
He was a prisoner of war, I believe, of the Russo-Japanese War. But yeah, he's director of the equally as iconic Zatoichi series, which stars this film's star's brother. Like a lot of young filmmakers in Japan, he started out working for Nikatsu, the studio made famous by Seijun Suzuki's colorful gangster movies, and later for its artsy erotic films. I'm putting it kind of gentle there. Pink film and
I would. Erotic is not really the word I would use.
Pink film and Roman porno get a little rough.
Yeah.
But along with Zatoichi in this one, he also kicked off the fairly problematic series Hanzo the Razor.
Wow, I watched the first one last night. Holy shit. That is a wild film series.
It is like he was, because that one comes right, because I believe the first Hanzo the Razor was produced about right after this.
It had to be. It's the same cast, it's the same crew, and it turns out there's a reason for that, but I will tell you later.
All right. So yeah, it makes him incredibly prolific in the field of samurai movies. He died fairly young at the age of 54, which is really too bad. But like he worked on some shit, and is responsible for some of the most just iconic sword fighting movies. It's nuts. Our cast is led by Tomisaburo Wakyama.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna do that.
He's the brother of Shintaro Katsu, who played the blind swordsman Zatoichi in the Kenji Misumi series. Katsu was intended to play the role of Ogami Itto in this movie, but was unavailable, so he brought in Wakayama as the next best thing. And apparently he didn't really want him at first, because he was like, this dude is way too fat to play this character. No,
it's a little more complicated than that. So it turns out that it's Katsu, right?
So Shintaro Katsu is Zatoichi. He's the original.
So he loved the comic book.
As we'll find out, everybody in Japan loved them.
Yes, they were very popular. There was zero criticism that was like negative. So he loved them, and he was like, I think I would very much like to be. So his brother, the one who was actually in this, he was like, oh, I got to play this character. I absolutely have to play this character. So he goes to, is it Koike? How do you pronounce his last name?
Kazuo Koike.
Yeah. So he goes to his house, and he shows up with like a practice sword. And he was just like, look, I need to be in this movie. And he was like, I have nothing to do with this, because like they hadn't even started yet. They just bought the rights.
Yeah.
And he was like, it must be me. And he was like, look, I don't really have anything to do with it. He was like, let me show you. And so he like did a bunch of somersaults and like sword fighting. And he was like, okay, well, you're good. You're good at things. And his whole reason for doing this was that he's a little overweight. He was like, I don't want them to think that I'm too fat to play this character. So he goes to his house. He's like, I'm going to show him that I can do it. And then like eventually he comes on, like he gets cast in the role. And then the other guy, he writes the guy who creates the comic. He writes the screenplay for it. And he would like call him in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I've got a new idea. And he was just like, Jesus Christ, man, you got to leave me alone. I'm sleeping.
It's like, fine, shut the fuck up. You got the role.
Pretty much. When he wrote it down, it was very funny. Because I watched an interview with him where this was like recently. I think he might have died a couple of years ago, but
yeah.
He was just like, it was very irritating. So they really wanted this guy, Tetsuya Watari, he was like a matinee star. He was in a movie like a series called Tokyo Drifter.
Oh shit. Yeah. Yeah.
That was who they originally wanted.
That goes back to Nikatsu and Seijin Suzuki. Tokyo Drifter is a wild, very colorful, very groovy, psychedelic, what is it? Yakuza movie.
Yeah, and so he was like, sure, I'll do it. And then something happened. He became ill. It's kind of vague as to what that means, but and so he couldn't really do it. And so then Katsu was like, well, Chubby, you're up. I guess you're in.
Because the original drawings of Ogami Itto he's just a regular athletic male. And Wakayama-san is my favorite. My favorite thing about him is he truly is like the people's samurai, because he is just like schlubby and out of sorts and sweaty all the time.
Like even when he pulls it together, he still looks pretty dumpy.
But he fucking kills it. He is awesome in these movies.
Well, that's what like everybody said. They were all like, well, I guess we can give it a shot. And it was like, he was so convincing, probably because he wanted it so badly. And he was like so into it. Like he loved the role. He loved the fucking series. Like he was just super into it.
I can see that. That's so great. Cause he's the man with no name. He's Wolverine. He's like all of these sort of like taciturn, tough guy characters.
I'll tell you what, he's not Trinity.
No.
Trinity, he's a goofy mother fucker.
Trinity's very silly. But yeah, Wakayama-san was multi-talented. He was a touring singer and a kabuki performer, which you could totally see in these movies. And so not the singing part, but like the kabuki stuff. He's like, yeah, this movie is full of that shit. He was a prolific actor of stuff not really seen outside of Japan, like most of the cast.
He's in the Bad News Bears Goes to Japan.
He is. He plays the other team's coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also he does play the villainous Oda Nobunaga in the incredible Shinobi no Mono series. I think he's the first 2 or 3 of those movies. He's
in the first 2, if not all, of the Bounty Hunter movies.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which are pretty good. He's in the later Battles Without Honor and Humanity.
Oh, the goddamn! There's a million of those too.
He's in I think the late when they because this movie
because there's Battles Without Honor and Humanity, and then there's New Battles.
Those are the ones that he's in.
Okay, yeah, those are fucking amazing. Jesus Christ, I love those movies. We've also got Yonosuke Ito, who's playing. Speaking of Shinobi no Mono, he plays the sort of evil series villain in the first one, the ambitious. And also in this one, the ambitious daimyo Yagyu Retsudo. He's also the sort of evil 2-timing ninja leader in Shinobi no Mono.
He's fantastic.
He's so fucking good in all of these. Dude was a chameleon character actor who also worked with Akira Kurosawa, appearing in Sanjuro, which is the sequel to Yojimbo, which is also a hell of a movie. And he's also in one of those weirdo Toho Dracula movies, The Evil of Dracula.
Yes, those are awesome. They're super weird.
They're so weird.
Apparently he was a little bit challenging to work with. So Kurosawa thought he was a little bit challenging to work with. Like they would get the fights a lot.
Thought everybody who wasn't Toshiro Mifune was difficult to work with.
I get it.
He also has a small part in the samurai movie Sleepy Eyes of Death. Hell is a Woman.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that. I've never seen a Sleepy Eyes of Death movie, but they have the best titles.
Yeah, see, the problem is this is a lot like these are kind of like their giallo, not in like aesthetic or story, but almost in like
in terms of cultural relevance.
Yeah, like they eventually the market becomes so flooded with these movies that it's hard to tell what's good and what's not, and a lot of it is not good.
Yeah, there is a sort of golden period, which is about I would say 1960 to 1975, which is quite a run. But after that, Japan's cultural condition changes. And
because we talked when we did the Godzilla, Ghidorah one.
Yeah. Just things in sort of Japan change socially, so the people aren't really looking to the past as much. They're starting to look towards the future. And so that's the 70s is really when you start to see sort of the rise of anime proper, mecha anime in particular, a lot of weird, wild sci-fi, the Super Sentai stuff, like the Power Rangers stuff gets really popular then.
But this is also where this series ends up coming out of, is that he was so one of his motivations was he felt like young people were not connected to their parents anymore, to their families anymore. And so he wanted to create something that was kind of new, but also had this connection to the past and it kind of emphasized family bond. And then, so that's why what motivated him to do this.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Rounding out our cast, we've got Akihiro Tomikawa, who plays little Daigoro. And not much is known about his life after this series concluded. These are the only movies he appeared in, and he never went on to act in anything else. The only thing known about him is that he did a few years in a Japanese prison for smuggling guns. So maybe he should have stuck to acting.
I was going to say he just became a salaryman, but I'm going to guess no, he did not.
Yeah, fucking gun smuggling is I think the only thing harsher in Japan is smuggling drugs. Because you are not allowed to have a gun in Japan.
Well, probably for good reason. And yet lots of people do. Lots of certain people do.
No salarymen, though sometimes I wonder.
No, they just kill themselves. That's why you're not allowed to have guns.
In the suicide forest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. So down to business. There's more than that, but broadly speaking, there's 2 types of popular samurai movies in Japan. The most popular and enduring type is what was popularized internationally by Akira Kurosawa, which is a genre known as jidaigeki, which translates literally to period drama. These are not necessarily action movies, nor are they necessarily samurai movies, but following World War II, the national mood of Japan kind of turned eyes towards the past.
Wonder why.
I know, where the empire still sort of reigned supreme. It's the sort of fascism of nostalgia.
You know what it is? It's their version of the Merchant Ivory movies. There's a little bit. There's more beheadings and awkward nudity.
Right. It's it is. I would say, I mean, apart from Poland, nobody really suffered harder with the sort of results of World War II than Japan. And so that defeat really fucked with them. And so some of these movies were just pure nostalgia and a kind of national self-soothing, but many were used as a sort of like meaningful deconstructions of their past and present.
Because it's the kind I'm going to make a broad sweeping generalization here, but like as a culture, they have long struggled to confront a lot of that stuff directly. And so they kind of have to find backdoor ways to get at it. That's why we have movies like Godzilla. It's only now that we have, I would say -1 was probably the first movie I've seen out of Japan that was like, no, we need to be critical of all of this. And we need to be very openly critical about this because, well, things aren't going great.
Right. And it only
People
took them 80
are still
years.
upset.
This movie, however, falls into what is more broadly known as chanbara, which means sword fighting. These are period pictures in that they often take place during Japan's feudal period, but there's no slavish devotion to period authenticity. The emphasis on these movies is action and gory violence. And I want to say
the gory violence is cathartic in a way that is almost indescribable for me. The joy that I get out of because if you've never seen these movies, it sounds like we're talking about like the kind of gore you'd see in like Italian splatter movies and stuff like that. It's not quite that. It's theatrical.
So the thing is what would happen is the way that these manga were often drawn is when like you wanted like big and sort of like impactful action scenes with violence, like the artists would illustrate the sort of effects of like a sword strike with like a burst of blood. And so what would end up happening on the screen is a lot of these guys, because manga like is always was and remains to this day like massively fucking popular. Like everybody reads manga. There is a manga for literally everybody. Like if you like to read about people who are really good at cooking, there's cooking manga. There's the usual like martial arts stuff, and sci-fi is really, really big, and horror, but like there is stuff about people who are like really into tuning race cars and like really sort of niche shit. Like, or there is manga for fucking everybody.
You want a manga about like just like two gay dads raising a daughter.
They got that too.
They got a bunch of those.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's fucking.
You know what
crazy.
You don't get a lot of is you don't get a lot of gay women in manga.
True. Yeah,
which is odd.
It is odd. It is. As I was saying, it kind of goes against my there's a manga for everybody. But yeah, there is not a lot of
not for lesbians. There's not
a lot for lesbians. I mean, there's
lesbians
boys,
getting short shrift all the time. Please
I
go into what you're about to say.
I know, ladies. My heart goes out to you because there's also boys love.
Holy shit! I find this genre of comic so bewildering.
It is. The weirdest thing about it is that its main readership is young women. And
it's the people who create it are young women.
Yeah.
Which is, if you've ever read them, it is very clear, because I read a lot of like web comics sometimes. I just go through like long periods. I'm just like, spacing out or whatever. And there's tons of these. And every now and then I'll like be like, let's see what the ladies are into. And it's hilarious because you can tell that whoever created it is deeply unfamiliar with gay culture in general, like gay men, very unfamiliar with gay sex. And just what they ultimately end up doing is projecting heterosexual relationships onto gay characters. And it's essentially replicating a straight relationship from a woman's perspective. So it's like you have two men. One of them is sort of more dominant, is the larger one. One of them is more feminine. It's like, you clearly know nothing about this. It's just this weird way of like processing their feelings about heterosexual relationships, but through gay characters. It's so bizarre and like appropriative.
You must be familiar with the phenomenon of slash fiction.
Oh yeah.
Because slash fiction used to be extremely niche, and then the internet kind of blew up, and it's like a humongous, massive thing in fan fiction online. But like in the 70s and 80s, it was like Starsky and Hutch and Kirk and Spock and stuff like that. But it was that same sort of thing where it was primarily digested through fanzines written by women and consumed entirely by women. Like men did not read these sorts of things. But yeah, like it is weird. And the thing is that these two phenomena evolved simultaneously, but with no interaction between the two.
Now here's what I got to say, ladies, don't drag us into your shit. Work through it on your own. You don't need us for that.
Anyways, getting back to my sort of main point there, like manga is incredibly important. And so when people started to sort of adapt it into television and into animated films and into these sort of live action movies, they took the sort of source material seriously. And a lot of the directors and the filmmakers and the writers did their best to sort of replicate the sort of outrageousness that exists on the page in their movies. And so what you get is explosive, gory violence like this.
And so my understanding is that Misumi was probably one of the best at doing this.
Yeah. And the thing that made him, he's kind of got the same sort of artistic qualities as like an American like Jack Kirby, where he was really, really good at communicating action on the page. And
so like he wanted to be a painter. That was what his whole dream in life was, to be a painter, but his father disapproved of it so strongly.
Like, no, you must write comic books.
Yeah. So he was like, well.
Yeah. And so a large part of this comics appeal to the public was the fact that it's action packed and panel to panel. It moves, it's kinetic, it's energetic, and it's violent. But also the other thing that people really liked about it was Kazuo Koike. He also did tremendous amounts of period research about like Tokugawa era Japan. And so like there's all sorts of, like, if you are a sword nerd, there is so much fucking stuff in here about like authentic knowledge about swords and stuff like that.
Oh, if you get the Criterion collection of these movies has a whole documentary about swords, like about the swords in the movie, about how they're made, and it's from like the 30s.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So like, the result of this is that as they started to sort of make these movies, they were trying to sort of make very faithful adaptations of the source material, which also happened to include these kind of like outrageous expressions of violence. And it only gets crazier from here.
And like every character is a character.
Oh,
like,
shit. Yeah.
Like there's no fucking background people in these stories.
No, when we meet the bandits, every bandit has a little thing to help you remember who's who.
Love them. They're so great. I don't know a whole lot about these movies, but I've seen a lot of them, and I feel like these are sort of top of the pile.
Yes. Yeah. These are certainly like, this is the high water mark for sure.
Oh, and I would also put Lady Snowblood. I think Lady Snowblood I would probably put a little bit above this. That is probably my favorite.
It's way
samurai.
More it's way more stylish. That one, but also creation of Kazuo Koike.
Yep. I mean, the second Lady Snowblood, it's okay. First one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah. So, speaking of Koike-san, the screenplay and the entire series overall was adapted from his manga by him. and it stays extremely close to the original first few issues of the comic. And if the powerhouse creative energy of the film's director, who was responsible for 3 of the most highly regarded Chanbara of all time, wasn't enough for you, Koike-san also was responsible for creating Lady Snowblood, which is also an amazing series of Chanbara, as well as the manga series Crying Freeman, which was adapted into a popular anime OVA and a pretty okay American film adaptation starring the American Iron Chef host and Diet Brandon Lee, Mark DeCasco.
Yeah.
The Lone Wolf and Cub series is adapted from a manga, which ran from 1970 to 1976 in the Seinen Digest, Weekly Manga Action.
Boring title.
And Seinen is manga intended for older boys, essentially, or like 18 and up, essentially.
Okay, I was gonna say this does not seem like the kind of thing you want to be like. Here you go, children, enjoy.
No, that's Shujo is no, that's for girls. Shonen is for boys, and there's like Weekly Shonen Jump, which is where shit like fucking One Piece and Dragon Ball come from.
And they're all wearing like short pants.
Yes,
all the boys wear really short shorts.
They have a little baseball cap and very, very short pants.
They all look like Short Round.
Yeah, this was a massive hit right off the bat. The entire story is collected in 28 300-page digests. It came to America in 1987, collected by the indie company First Comics, which has covers by American comic book artists like Matt Wagner from Grendel, Bill Sienkiewicz, who's most sort of recognizable from the New Mutant series in the 80s, a guy named Mike Plug, who was one of Marvel's best and most prolific artists of the 70s. And it had introductions from one of comics' greatest reputation nosedives, Frank Miller. Yeah, there's a guy who really just flushed it all down the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if we couldn't see that coming.
I know.
This miserable bastard turns out to be a real sack of crap. Surprise.
Just fascist comic book fantasy after fascist comic book fantasy that when he finally sort of reveals himself, you're like, oh shit, yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
Yeah. So the way the movie comes to be is, so I already told you, like, it's Katsu picks up the rights because he thinks it's really cool, but it was also at the same time that Daiei had gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
So they'd gone bankrupt in 71.
With a Daiei project because Misumi was, I think, contracted to Daiei.
He was contracted with them, but he also, so Misumi was contracted with them for the Zatoichi movies and a bunch, like he was a contract player in general.
Yeah, for context, if Toho is Hammer, Daiei is Amicus.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And so they don't quite go under, but they end up going bankrupt in 71. And he was like, I don't ever want to be locked into that kind of contract again. And he had the money and he had the freedom. So he was like, I'm going to start my own fucking thing. But he loved all of the guys that he worked with at Daiei. So he goes and gets the entire Daiei Kyoto like production crew, which included Misumi. And so they had worked a bunch of times on the Zatoichi movies, and they just kind of knew each other from being around, and they liked each other a lot. And so he was like, I'm just going to take this whole crew, and they're going to make these movies. They end up making them all together. So that's why each of these movies, you're like, why is this all the same cast in all of these movies? And it's like, the thing they all have in common is the Katsu Productions.
But also the Tokyo film production scene is comparatively tiny. When put up against like Hollywood, and so it's an extremely incestuous little scene where everybody is working on everybody else's projects.
I think maybe the better comparison is that this is a lot like AIP.
Yes, okay, makes perfect sense.
Like people are like kind of apprenticing. Like you could walk into Daiei or you could walk into Katsu and be like, I want to be in the movies, and they'd be like, okay, you're going to start by getting me my coffee every day, and then next month you can be a director.
Yeah, like one of the things about like Nikatsu in particular that was even in the late 70s, after they had kind of shed their reputation as like the house that Seijun Suzuki built, and were now kind of like a porno company, was artsy fartsy filmmakers, guys who had like eyes on being like the next, like the Japanese David Lynch, would stroll into that place and be like, I want to make a movie. And they'd be like, have you ever made a movie before? And they're like, fuck no. I used to make ramen.
And they were like, okay, well, we're going to entrust to you a 6-film series about a girl biker gang.
Yeah. And then they'd be like, you can do whatever the fuck you want with these movies,
but
as long as it has like 3 nude scenes and a very explicit sex scene and some bondage. And they were like, all right, cool. And then they pushed out like the sleaziest sexploitation stuff you have ever seen. That is also some of the most artfully produced movies that have ever come out of Japan. It is Pink film is a fucking land of contrast.
I will tell you this. I am on record, and it is well established, I'm a fan of sexploitation movies. I have a great interest in the history of pornography in general. I know a lot about the stuff. I've watched tons of it and looked at tons of it. I find pink films to be very upsetting.
It's because
I find the violence, like the sexual violence in these movies, I really do not like it at all. It's like the one thing that I'm like, I don't want to see any of this in this movies ever.
I don't know why. I don't presume to speculate. I don't understand why. It is extremely common, even to this day, that sexuality and sex scenes in Japanese movies always has a very violent and unpleasant quality to it that is little rapey.
Like I will be super into these movies, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, come on, man.
I don't get it. I don't get it, and I don't know if I really want to know. Japanese ladies, I hope you're okay over there.
Well,
but anyways,
they're going through it right now. Everybody in Japan's going through it right now.
Anyways, back to First Comics. The company collapsed in 91, having published only a third of the story. That's between 1987 and 1991. They'd only produced because they were releasing them in like traditional comic book format.
Jesus.
Just
put out a fucking omnibus and be done with it.
That's what Dark Horse did in 2000, where they put it out in I think like 8 volumes, and they're thick as a fucking New York phone book. And they're amazing. They're fucking incredible. They're some of the best comics I've ever read. Like, believe the hype. Lone Wolf and Cub is amazing.
You got to read them. You got to read them from right to left.
Yep, and the Dark Horse ones present them in that format.
Well, good.
Actually, most Dark Horse, I believe, is one of the first like American like publishers that actually presented manga that way. And then all of a sudden, everybody started doing that.
Oh, good on you, Dark Horse.
Yep. So the original Japanese title of this movie is Kozure Okami, Kowakashi Uedekashi Tsukamatsuro, which means wolf with child in tow, child and expertise for rent.
I don't think I like the sound of that at all.
No, there's a couple of guys in the movie who are like, what do you think that sign means?
Yeah.
Yep. Since its publication, the taciturn father and son trope of the manga and movies has been adapted to numerous similar projects like Leon the Professional, Road to Perdition, itself a comic book adaptation with Tom Hanks, and most recently the Star Wars series The Mandalorian.
And all the dumb shit that fucking Quentin Tarantino does.
He has never really done the Lone Wolf and Cub thing, though.
No, I guess so.
His thing is women's feet.
Oh, God, yeah.
Anyways, the first 2 movies, primarily scenes from the second Lone Wolf and Cub movie, Baby Cart at the River Styx, were combined into a single, hyper-violent movie that fans of Wu-Tang Clan should be familiar with, Shogun Assassin.
It's bad. It's real bad.
It's I understand.
Just watch these fucking movies.
I saw it after I saw these movies, and so it didn't affect me the way that it really captivated people who've only seen that movie.
Okay, so I also watched it. We watched all of these, and then I watched that one because it's also in the Criterion Collection.
It's just fight scene after fight scene after fight scene. There's
which
no
is
story.
Fine. Like because let's be honest, the story in this is convoluted at best, but it's just so crappy. Like, just watch the fucking original movie.
Yeah, but the thing is they were not available.
Well, this one actually was in theaters here.
No shit. All right.
I told you I found a bunch of reviews.
What did the press think of it?
All right. So it's actually kind of interesting, though, the way it was received. Some people really liked it, and some people did not. So I'm going to hit you with some New York Times.
Oh, okay.
Howard Thompson. If the plot sounds familiar, it should. Using the American West, John Ford has done far better of these staples. The manly, just wait for it. The manly, misunderstood outcast, the appealing infant, and the tarnished belle. Here, with no particular imagination or flair, which I strongly disagree with, Kenji Misumi directs a blunt melodrama accordingly. Sword of Vengeance may be a swinger, but it's all been swung before over in Japan and here too. I feel like the whole review was just a setup for that last line because he's like, oh, that's good. That's good. So what I find really interesting about this, I disagree with this review entirely.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. What I find really interesting is that Howard Thompson's only way of engaging with this movie is as an American. He can only see it as relative to what American Western directors have done.
Yeah.
And as such, he thinks it's a replication of that. Yeah. Rather than look, it's like such an uncurious, boring way of looking at a movie.
I would imagine that a lot of contemporary reviews by Westerners, particularly Americans, were at least driven a little bit by racism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there is a lot of that. But like, again, what I was saying before is like, there is such interesting overlap between spaghetti Westerns, American Westerns, which are just kind of shitty Westerns, and these movies. But there's so much of a difference that it's like, there's something interesting to be learned there. But it's not like, oh, he's just ripping off John Ford.
Yeah.
Fuck John Ford in the face. I hate that shit. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I get that because they do. It's unavoidable. The parallels are there, and they were all sort of being produced at the same time with the same intensity and velocity as American Westerns. But the cultural flavor of them is where the fucking charm lies.
Right. And the assumption, at least from Howard Thompson in this case, is, oh, well, they're obviously just ripping off Americans. And it's like, no, bitch, they're not.
Right.
That's like, why it's interesting.
Like by this point, there was like 20 plus years legacy of fucking samurai movies.
And so, that was a little shitty. Anyway, Mitch with some LA Times, Kevin Thompson. Right. What ensues, so he kind of sets it up as just gives the premise of the movie. So what ensues is virtually impossible to follow. But moviegoers...
okay, I'll give you that. This movie takes a few watches.
But moviegoers familiar with the samurai genre will know their way around. What really matters is the dazzling way in which Misumi stages Wakayama's spectacular swordplay, investing slaughter with the elegance of a dance ritual and creating images of striking beauty out of pain and chaos.
That is the shit right
there. Kevin Thomas understands.
He gets it, because eventually the 90s are going to roll around in America and John Woo movies are going to become like the fucking thing. And they're going to say the same things because like he did the same thing for Hong Kong action as like Misumi was doing for samurai movies, where it's not just violent. It's like fucking elegant and balletic. It's amazing. It's like a dance instead of just people like punching each other. Like especially the thing that always like once I caught wind of like Asian action movies, like it really, for me, it started with martial arts and like the sort of gunplay movies. Was once I was exposed to those, I could not look at American action movies the same way because the way that like Chinese filmmakers and Japanese filmmakers carry it out is so fucking different. Like over here, it's like action movies were like a blunt object. There's no finesse. There's no sort of like, there's nothing about, it's all just like fast, choppy editing. Where over there, like they're going to show you all of the movement and stuff.
Well, to be fair though, Hong Kong action until John Woo, until that generation, it was also kind of a blunt object, and it had a really goofy protagonist.
Oh man, no, but they're martial
arts. They're more interesting to
watch.
Fucking
good.
But yeah, so he said Kevin Thomas sort of understands what's going on here. And the last one, these are all wildly different. The last one is one of the better. Janie Miller, San Francisco Examiner. Those who are familiar with the samurai genre realize that blood and gore are hideously obligatory, but Sword of Vengeance goes one step beyond into even more obscene, blood-splattered horror. American filmmakers have not cornered the market on exploitation, as this dreadful Japanese drama clearly reveals, dragging in extraneous nudity, brutal rape, and gratuitous violence in overwhelming proportion. Calm down, Jeannie Miller.
I know. Oh my God. It's like she's like what are those thuggish Huns doing over there?
I chose these three. I mean, there's not a ton. This was released in big cities. So there's not a ton of reviews, but I chose these three because they're all very different, and I think they're all very American in their approach to the movie.
Yeah.
And I find that very interesting that she would be like, what is this disgusting thing? And it's like, I mean, it's disgusting, but it's very cartoony.
Yeah.
Like, it's very clear that this is not meant to gross you out. It's very theatrical.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I really knew enough about it to really speak on it, but all of this stuff, particularly this very loud, very, very explosive samurai action movies, are rooted in kabuki, which is all about extremes and outrageousness and stuff like that.
I mean, kabuki, as I understand, and again, I understand very little about it, but it's not necessarily violence. It's that everything is very big. Everything is very pronounced. It's very fantastical.
Yeah. Like, one of the things that I do know about it is when people go and they see a movie about Ishikawa Goemon, who was sort of like Japanese Robin Hood. If you go that, when he comes out on stage, he leaps out onto the stage, onto a platform, and strikes like a very, very dramatic pose, and the crowd goes apeshit for it, and they all in unison shout his name. So it's like that kind of vibe that these movies are communicating, and that we as Americans have no cultural parallel to. So it all just feels a little alien.
It's a little bit it's like a panto almost. We don't have that in this because Americans are very sort of self-conscious and very staid people. So we don't have these big kind of cultural collective moments where we're allowed to be goofy.
Yeah.
And so if you have you ever seen Demon Pond?
No.
It's a kabuki movie. It's I don't know if it originally is a kabuki story, like a performance. The movie is very strange, very psychedelic, but it has that same vibe where everything is very big, and it's like she's a lady, but she's also a goldfish. It's like shit like that. And so I'm watching that tonight. It's kind of it's slow, it's a little boring, but it's visually striking. But it's this idea that this is not violence for the sake of violence. This is not Grindhouse. Shogun Assassin is Grindhouse.
Yeah, because they cut all this fucking story out. It's nothing but the violence.
But if you look at it, from that kabuki tradition, even from a theatrical tradition, you could understand, even as an American, that's why everything is so big, because it was for the theater. Yeah. It had to do it for the back rows all the time.
Yeah.
And so to look at it and just be like, well, what is this horrible, hideous garbage? And it's like, bitch, get over yourself. If Kevin Thomas can love it, so can you.
I know. Have a little fun. Treat yourself.
She didn't and she wouldn't.
No. But we're about to. Let's talk about this movie. All right. So we open on a scene where a very young feudal lord, maybe 5 years old at the oldest, is being led into the execution hall in front of his wailing retainers.
I was going to say, I thought he was 3 years old. I was like, why is their lord a 3-year-old child? He seems like he'd make a bad leader.
Well, that's the thing is these I don't know, these sort of noble families were constantly fucking warring with each other. This movie takes place during a time where things were starting to cool off, but it would not be unusual for one sort of daimyo to be sort of cut down in battle or have been assassinated, and his only heir is a 3-year-old boy.
Next thing you know, you got King Joffrey.
Exactly. But
I love these. You're gonna do him the same way.
because they're like his like basically his consigliere is like leading him into the thing, and his retainers are like bowing down in front of him, and they are just like wailing.
Yeah, I would call it keening. They're keening,
and they're like rending garments and shit. Like these guys are going nuts. It's that kabuki shit. And so his second in command curses them out for being such babies before leading the young lord into the execution chamber.
The actual baby.
Yeah, where he is is met by the shogun's executioner, Ogami Itto.
Now, look, I don't want to harp on it, but I don't know if shooting Ogami from below is a good idea.
Especially in his like ceremonial garb, because it's not like the fucking robes and shit that he wears later. It's like this little puffy skirt.
Yeah, he looks a little chinsy.
And what crime this little kid could have committed is anybody's guess.
It has to do with money. It has to do with they didn't pay the, whatever their due essentially was to the emperor or whoever. And that's why they're doing this. It's very strange. But so the reason he said he included this is that he wanted to establish right off the bat, well, you've already implied he is there to meet the executioner. They're going to execute this child. But he wanted to make sure the audience understood from the very beginning that nobody is safe here.
Yeah. Oh.
They will start by killing a child, and you know that nobody is going to be safe throughout this movie.
Yeah, and as we go throughout it, absolutely everything is a potential affront to the shogun.
Yeah.
And if you do any, you look at him weird, you're going to get your head chopped off.
Yeah, I mean, you write a critical article about him or something. He sues you, and you say you're ABC News, and he's upset with you.
So the movie is set during the Edo period, which is a period of feudal stability between the years 1600 and the mid 1800s, which is following the Sengoku period, which was a period of about 200 years of civil war after civil war.
Is everybody writing this down? You're going to need to know this stuff for later.
So this movie probably takes place somewhere in the late 1700s. And also Edo is the former name of Tokyo.
Beautiful. Delicious.
Yeah. So they instruct the child in the ritual of seppuku as Ito-san delivers the decapitating blow. You don't actually see it or anything like that. It's
tasteful. I will say for he is when it comes to directing these scenes, even the sex scenes, he is more tasteful than you would get in another movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a little note about that as well.
He also didn't like these movies, by the way.
Really? Because he made a whole bunch of them, and they're really good.
So I can't remember who it was. He has a biographer. I watched an interview with the guy who wrote his biography, and he said because of the way their film system used to work, same way the film system worked here, they often found themselves like they had to make movies they didn't really want. Like you just kind of got assigned a movie.
Yeah.
And he often got assigned movies he didn't really want to make, but he always found a way to like make it his own. And sort of like put his philosophies into it, put his style into it. So even if he didn't love the movie, he still like kind of took ownership of it, and everybody seemed to appreciate that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So now a series of title cards explain the secret political machinery of the Edo period shogunate.
Jesus Christ, are you going to try to explain this?
just give you a little context. The unnamed shogun of the time, paranoid of sedition, set up several groups within the shogunate, because this is important to the why of Retsudo Yagyu trying to sort of muscle in.
He's also just a wild, crazy character. Like, I mean, yeah, there's political machinations here, but like for the most part, he's just a kooky, wild, like mad king.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So the shogun has several little groups to keep tabs on everybody. They got ninjas. They were installed in various courts to keep an eye on things. There were assassins who were dispatched when somebody needed to be killed quietly, and an official executioner was installed for when the crimes of a daimyo needed to be very public and official. And Ogami Itto was installed as that executioner. So there you go.
Soon he will be all of those things.
So now we cut to the Japanese countryside. Ito-san, looking rough and chubby.
Yeah, he is a mess. He has not combed his hair in days.
Pushes his young son, Daigoro, along a path in a bamboo baby cart with a sign which says, "Son for hire, sword for hire."
I do not like the implications of that sign.
I don't like it either. So
the interesting thing about Daigoro is key to this entire. I'm gonna assume the comic books as well, but he's key to the entire story in that what Ogami Itto is he's essentially a Superman. He's an unkillable, well, turns out he's not unkillable, but he is sort of an unstoppable force. And the way that they all looked at it was, well, you can't have a series, an ongoing thing where it's just this unstoppable force. There has to be something.
It's the sort of struggle that writers have when they're working on Superman.
Yes.
Because like where do you create vulnerabilities in a guy who cannot be killed by anything and so only gets stronger? They
had to create a reason for him to have a vulnerability. And so they create his son, Daigoro, who he, pushes around in this little cart. It's very cute. And so all of the danger, it's Daigoro who's going to face a lot of the danger. Because Ogami, he can kill anything, and he does. Like anything that he literally takes on like an army of like 200 people in the last movie. It's awesome. And so Daigoro is interesting, but what's more interesting is that we have just seen a child get killed. So we know that we know that he's not going to get killed, presumably because he's a badass ninja, but Daigoro's not. And so we know that there is a chance that he could get killed because we just saw a child die. This is not something you see in American movies, even now, but definitely not then.
No. So now a crazed woman comes running along the path and grabs Daigoro, calling him Toramatsu. And an older woman follows her and explains that Toramatsu was her son who died some time ago. His death drove her insane, and she routinely mistakes other people's children for her own.
And listen, Ogami, I don't think I like how fully unbothered he is by this woman just grabbing his son, and sticking her tits in his face. Like he's just kind of like, well, what are you going to do?
He is the most zen dude in the world. So now she breastfeeds him while the older woman attempts to pay Itto-san for the service. He declines her payment, stating that Daigoro happened to be hungry at the time.
And I don't know if that's supposed to be a joke or whatever it is. I don't like it.
It's a weird sort of merciful side of Ogami Itto.
Yeah, he does.
Because the thing is, his portrayal throughout the series is he is just a fucking hardcore killing machine with a very gruff exterior. But throughout several of the movies, he kind of puts himself out there to help people who ordinarily would not be helped by anybody.
Oh, yeah. No, we should say if somebody needs an American parallel, it's the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is. I mean, that's what the series essentially is. I also like that all the townsfolk that are around, they also seem like deeply and thoroughly exhausted by this woman. And frankly, I understand. I get it. She seems exhausting.
She's at a 10 all the time.
Yeah, she's just like, okay, here, I'm done. I got what I needed. You can have your child back. And I like that Daigoro has like a little kind of privacy hut.
Yes, he does. So now we flash back to happier times. Ogami returns to his home after a long day of chopping off heads for the shogun. His wife Azami greets him, telling him that she's been bothered lately by dreams of Ogami's victims haunting her from hell and that she worries about the soul of their son Daigoro. And now Ogami relieves her, takes Daigoro to the family temple to pray. And then, while this is all happening, ninjas climb over the wall while he's occupied, and they murder Azami and the rest of the house staff.
Real sneaky. Remember that scene in Ninja Turtles where the Foot Clan silently descend on the apartment?
Yep.
It's basically that.
It's that. So now Itto-san stoically swears revenge on whoever is responsible for this.
Then he puts her in a sleeping bag and tosses Daigoro in with her for some reason.
In the morning, a representative of the Yagyu clan arrives to inform Ogami that retainers of the clan, whose child lord was just executed, committed seppuku in front of the shogunate gates, leaving behind a proclamation that Ogami is corrupt and abuses his station, and that evidence of his treason will be found in his family temple. So off they go to inspect it. When they open the doors, Ogami is shocked to find a memorial plaque on the altar, implying that he wishes death on the shogunate. But he didn't put it there. How could this be?
It's extremely confusing. This is why this is my least favorite, because this is the one that is the most story heavy.
Yeah, like because last night when I was watching this doing notes, like after I finished, also these movies are really quite short. As after this one was over, I was like, fuck it, I'm putting River Styx on, and I followed it up, and I'm like, oh my god, this movie is just sword fight after sword fight.
Yeah, and it fucking rules.
Yeah. Okay, so the Yagyu clan inspector attempts to arrest Ogami, but he sniffs out the corruption immediately. It's a conspiracy.
Yeah, this guy's a real bastard.
Yeah, the Yagyu are plotting against Ogami in order to steal his position in the shogunate. This is the one thing that I've never fully been able to grasp. Why his role is so vital? Because everybody
they need him out of the way.
What lies at the heart of this whole movie is Yagyu Retsudo just wants the role of the executioner.
Yes, but I think he wants the role for his son.
Yeah,
so his son can kill the head of the whatever.
Okay.
It has some. I read a whole thing about it. I was like, I need to understand what this plot of the story. It doesn't fucking matter because after this movie, it doesn't come back too often. It will periodically, but like. It doesn't matter after this one. I do like that he says
toward the end of the series, because eventually they kind of got to help you remember what exactly is going on here as they're about to kind of wrap things up.
Like, look, I just sat through 5 of these things. I don't care about that anymore. He does. I like that he says to, Ogami says, he abuses his authority like a parasite on a lion's body. I'm going to start using that everywhere I go. Just like to the person at CVS or whatever.
Yeah. But I think Yagyu Retsudo he eventually wants to rise to the position of the shogun.
Yes. So he wants to put his son in there. So basically they can usurp.
So he can basically kill off all of the people who would otherwise. Yeah. Okay.
But the son, as we will learn, is not long for this world.
Nope. Bizen is his son.
Yes.
Oh, that dude gets his head cut off.
Yep. In a spectacular fashion.
It's so rad. So now they attack Ogami, who fucking handily defeats all of the Yagyu fighters, fighting them out to the picturesque location of a river.
This is the shot. So apparently this was like a thing that he would do a lot, especially in this one. He loved doing these kind of bird's eye view top down shots.
Okay. Which
was not a big, like, was not a thing that Japanese filmmakers did a lot. And so that he was kind of like unique in that way.
All right. And as we said, every death results in like an explosion of blood.
Yeah, it is like, fantastic.
Every strike is like a burst, a geyser of blood. When I say arterial spray, it is like there is an endless amount of blood just flying out of all these bodies constantly.
And from places where there aren't even arteries.
While they fight, Yagyu Retsudo watches them from on high, remarking that the Yagyu inspector is a fool for taking Ogami's bait to fight in the river. That's where his technique is strongest.
For some reason.
When he attacks, Ogami responds with the Suio Ryu wave slicer technique and kills him.
What I love about this is, and this will be repeated throughout the entire series really, is that Japan has a very varied landscape, just in general, depending on where you are. Mm-hmm. And they always seem to work the landscape in. So you have, because this movie and on the ones after it are pretty much just one sword fight after another, that could get really tedious after a while. And yet they find a way to incorporate the environment in each combat scene in a way that makes them interesting and exciting.
Yeah.
And I think otherwise it could get really boring really quickly if it's just two dudes fighting in the open desert or whatever.
Right. And there's a rhythm to these fight scenes as well, where it's like, it starts out where it's just like hectic and it builds to sort of like a frantic pace where it's just like chop, 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 chop. And when we finally get to this fight, it slows for a second where he like lowers himself into the river to like get ready for his big wave slicer attack. And then he just in two quick motions just handles this opposing samurai when it comes to this like very sudden end on a very dramatic sword pose. It's so fucking awesome.
And this will happen over and over again where like it'll be almost it'll be like four dudes surround him and he will make like one hand gesture and then all four of them will drop. And so this, I guess, was the way you're supposed to remove a sword is very much not like what he does. You're supposed to remove it straight out.
Yeah.
But this was the way, what's the guy's name? Ogami's name, his real name.
Wakayama.
Yeah. So
Tomisaburo.
he would pull it out and whip it around in like a kind of a big, like an arc across. And he was like, that was like his style of doing this. It was like, it gave us so much more, like so many more opportunities to kill lots of people. Cause he was like, otherwise it would look really clumsy and awkward. If you ever watch the Zatoichi movies, he fights in a very strange way. Because the way he holds his sword.
Yeah, also, he holds the sword upside down.
Yeah, and that makes his movements look really weird. But he was like, otherwise, you have to make it look interesting because it's not really that interesting. Like you pull it out and stick it straight out, and that's kind of how you fight.
Also, the way that you actually use these weapons is, if you use them at all, swords were kind of like sidearms for soldiers. Really, you were supposed to fight with like spears and bows and stuff like that. But like when you used these, a fight was over within a couple of like moves. Like you would strike and like deflect and then strike again, and then the fight is over. So there weren't a lot of ways to kind of like draw these out and turn them into like sort of like swashbuckling swords fights of the West. Yeah,
like you have your swords, you have like a sai, and you have your baby cart. Those are your primary weapons. You have your Daigoro.
Then after he kills him, he turns to Retsudo and tells him that he's going to track him down and kill his entire clan. And
I love Retsudo. He's got real like hard homeless guy energy. Like he talks out of one side of his mouth, and you could tell like he's the kind of dude. He's got one wonky eye. Like he's the kind of dude who's just like muttering to himself all the time about shit, just like how people have wronged him. Like that's his vibe.
So in Shinobi no Mono, the primary story in the first movie is about the Iga ninjas versus the Koga ninjas, which is two villages, two prefectures, and they had a rivalry, and he basically plays the leader of both of them. Of both clans. And so like when he's in charge of one clan, like he's wearing like a fucking costume and like fake mustaches and stuff, and he's got like he's really kind of like elderly and a little bit feeble, but then like when it's time to sneak over to the other clan and be that, like he's an entirely different guy. He's like Genghis Khan with that one.
Oh yeah, he's like 42 years old in this movie. But they make him look like he's about 70.
Yeah.
He's did you watch Avatar?
No.
Okay. There's a character, they refer to him as the Mad King. He looks a lot like, I would imagine he's probably modeled after him.
Wait, Avatar the Last Airbender or Avatar the Blue Alien?
Airbender.
Okay.
Yeah, I think his name is Boomy. He's the Mad King. He's the Earthbender. And I would imagine he looks a little bit like this.
All right.
And then he kills, Ogami kills everybody. And he's like, I may look like a slob from here on out, but I will have my vengeance.
Yeah. Yep. And he grunts and growls at him. It's so fucking fantastic.
And thus begins the Incredible Hulk portion of the film.
Right. He demands that Retsudo fight him, but he refuses, telling him that the shogunate will settle the matter. And then he says, wash your neck and wait for the blade.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we will have to wait a while for them to have at it.
Oh yeah. From here on out, like occasionally Retsudo is going to show up and he's just going to be shown in close up watching Ogami fight like 1,000 people at once, but have this like extremely intense look on his face.
And he'll be doing some voiceover it's as though he's looking at them from on high.
Yeah. So back in the present, Ogami pushes the baby cart to a temple in the pouring rain where he meets 3 retainers of the Oyomata clan. They can't be sure that it's Ogami, but that they're meeting so that they set up a trap to test him. 2 of the retainers will ambush him, and if he's the real deal, he'll have no problem killing them.
I love this part because the guy's basically like, well, you pledged your lives to me, so go throw yourselves at that legendary killer. And they do.
Yep.
This is another moment where like he's sitting there with the guys like, please come and sit in my temple or whatever the fuck they're doing. And they're sitting there and they're talking. And the other 2 dudes like sneak up behind him and he just whips out his sword without even turning around and kills them both.
Yep. Yeah. And the look on the retainer's face is just like, oh shit.
Well, yeah, because Ogami's like, yeah, go on. You were saying.
Right. So the Chamberlain greets Ogami, asks him to perform an execution. And then just then the 2 retainers bust in with their swords drawn. Ogami wastes them without getting up. And then the Chamberlain's problem is that he has found a conspiracy within his own house to assassinate his lord and replace him with their own successor. So Ogami is to go to a nearby hot springs resort where the assassins wait. It's a trio of skilled swordsmen and a cavalry officer who is skilled with a pistol.
Now, you gotta feel bad for Ogami throughout the entire series, because like this dude is just trying to walk away his blues, just trying to walk it off. Wife got killed. He's on the demon highway to hell.
He's on the demon way.
And he can't take 10 fucking steps in any movie without somebody trying to kill him.
Oh no, in the next one it's going to happen again where he meets with a bunch of retainers who just need him to take out some people, and then just like he as they're talking, he's like, hang on a second, he throws his sword that just happens to hit the sneaky ninja behind the wall. And
in the next one there's lady killers.
Oh yeah, lady ninjas up the ass in these
and movies. They are awesome.
Yeah. So on the way to the resort, Daigoro and Ogami witness two kids playing with the ball, which takes us back to the time where Ogami gave Daigoro a choice: to walk with him on the demon way in hell or to join his mother in death. Now, the choice is represented by a sword and a ball. Choose the ball, and he joins his mother. Choose the sword, and he becomes a demon with his father. Daigoro crawls to the sword.
Ogami, and then it sort of like dissolves into like a weird psychedelic voiceover.
Yeah. Yeah, Ogami mourns for his son. Yeah, a single tear. So now,
well, I mean, and Daigoro, he's basically just he's kind of just a decoration throughout most of the movies.
Right, until they become overrun, and it's like, oh shit, he knows how to use that baby cart.
Yeah, he does.
So the Shogun's retainers arrive in the morning to revoke Ogami's position and formally accuse him of sedition. So Ogami and Daigoro are dressed in white funeral robes, but it's not their death that's about to happen.
Yeah.
Now, Itto picks up Daigoro and wields the sword with his other arm and proceeds to slice the hell out of the Shogun's soldiers. Again, blood everywhere. Every wound results in like a geyser of gore.
Yeah. It could be, and it's like, it could just be someone's forehead.
Yeah,
and it is just a fountain of blood.
And this is my favorite. This is my favorite kill of the whole bunch. A lone soldier stands frightened against the sealed gate of the Itto compound. Ogami strikes him down as he turns to run. His sword cuts through the soldier and the bar keeping the gate shut. Mm-hmm. And so as that dude dies, it just swings open to reveal Retsudo with even more bad guys. And then they offer him
everything is like every scene in this movie. You're like, oh. This slobby bastard is a total badass.
He's amazing. That's
like even when when he contracts with the other guy, he's just like, no, it's a flat fee. It doesn't matter if it's one person or 1,000 people.
Yep.
You just give me $500 and I'm going to kill everything. Just how it goes.
Yep. So they offer him another chance to accept his death with honor, but he refuses, repeating his oath to kill them all. So Retsudo vows that he can never break through their wall of swords, but Ogami suddenly sheds the white death robes, revealing that he's wearing the robes bearing the crest of the Shogun. And if Retsudo's men were to deface the crest in the course of combat, it would be seen as treason.
Their reaction to this is pretty great, because they're all like, oh, no.
Right. I don't know. They're like, shit, he got us with the fucking technicality.
Like, you followed this homeless man here to kill this guy, and his outfit is what's stopping you?
Oh yeah. It's just you can't fuck with that crest, man. So they compromise by having him remove the crest and allow him to pass out of Edo and earn a living if he can beat the best swordsman of the Yagyu clan in a duel. So this is Retsudo's son.
Yes.
And they run at each other, but as they get close, Ogami suddenly ducks his head, revealing that Daigoro is wearing a deflector on his head, which reflects the sun and blinds the Yagyu swordsman.
It is awesome.
Ogami uses the distraction to cut his head off neatly. Slow motion.
This is my favorite kill in the whole movie.
Slow motion geyser of blood from the stump, and the head just kind of rolls away.
So his body is still like spinning as he runs. His head flies off. His geyser of blood, but it is beautifully composed, this shot, because it's like golden hour feel.
It's amazing. It's fucking incredible. Yeah, it's that like dramatic, like eventually every single anime, every single like swordsman movie starts doing this, where the final blow is delivered and then he just holds the fucking position as like the dude behind him dies. It's incredible.
And that's that idea of like, this is like a dance. Mm-hmm. He has finished his part, but he cannot move yet because the scene is not over yet.
Right.
And it's like sunset. It is a stunning moment.
Yeah. So the implication here is because he beat this swordsman, he can leave the Edo territory and do whatever the fuck he wants, and Retsudo's guys can't fuck with him. So they have to sort of like work little conspiracies to sort of get to him. Back in the present, Ogami and Daigoro arrive at the hot springs, and they cross a long suspension bridge over a river where they're met by two bandits who chase a wounded man off the side to his death.
And what I like is the song that Daigoro is singing. The lyrics to it are, "If you drop a hard turd in the sand."
Right. Yep. Covered in sand, and it rolls downhill.
Yep.
Yep. They relieve Ogami of his special sword, and they give him a hard time, revealing that their gang is taken over.
They're like the Jay and Silent Bob of Japan.
Yeah, and joke's on them, since he is there to fucking kill them all.
Like, like they're all gonna die. And they're so dumb. Like, that's how you know they're all gonna die. Is like, they all suck real bad.
They're dumpy. They're cruel bad guys. It's gonna be hard for him to kill all these guys without his sword, but I'm sure he's gonna manage.
Oh, he has options.
So Ogami arrives in time to see
You
the
might
bandits.
say he has a whole baby card of options.
He arrives in time to see the bandits brutally assaulting a woman.
It's terrible.
Her father attempts to save her, but one of the bandits produce a weight on a chain, which he throws around the old man's neck and chokes him to death.
And you can see, if you watch I would say if you watch this movie and Lady Snowblood, you can see everything that Tarantino rips off for Kill Bill.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Like that chain weapon, like that is, and I think that, I don't know if that was a real weapon. I can't imagine that it was. It seems very unwieldy. But it's like the thing that, what's her name? Go-Go, the one who.
Right. Yeah. She's got that one, that spiked ball on a chain.
Yeah. It's very much like that. And I think after watching some of these, because I do not like Quentin Tarantino's movies. I think he's hacky as hell. But of his movies, those ones I did kind of like. After getting into samurai movies, I was like, oh, he's just ripping off these, like, and aggressively, egregiously ripping them off. Like, all Kill Bill is Lady Snowblood. That's basically the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, just watch Lady Snowblood. That movie is fucking awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So now the rest of the bandits, meanwhile, totally underestimate Ogami based on his looks. He appears to be in really rough shape.
Which, hey, I get it.
I know. Looks can be deceiving. Surely he couldn't possibly be any sort of threat.
No, they're also all dressed like pirates.
They are. Ogami identifies himself as a Ronin, and the bandits test him. He falls for their tricks deliberately, setting them up to think that he's just this over-the-hill, easy prey. A bandit who specializes in throwing knives goes to further test Ogami, while the bandit leader swears up and down that they have met before, but he can't place where. Yeah,
throwing knife guy. In my notes, he is Japanese Michael Jackson.
It's the Jerry curl.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So now Ogami and Daigoro are taken to a bathhouse where the bandits are keeping the rest of the hot spring staff and visitors. Daigoro playfully leaps onto some mats and falls asleep to their delight. Mm-hmm. And then the bandits return with Ogami's sword, and the knife bandit demands a duel, to which Ogami ignores him, even though he's being beaten. And then the bandit turns his attention to Daigoro, but he's stopped by a prostitute who convinces him to chill out.
Yeah, she is referred to as she's a whore and a pillow thief. Now,
right. Her name in the credits is actually Osen, which means whore.
Now, I feel like those two things should not be weighted the same.
She'll fuck you and then she'll rob you.
Yep.
So he agrees to let Daigoro go, but only if she fucks Ogami in front of everyone.
Which is like a weird compromise.
Right. She refuses and is about to be killed when Ogami agrees and solemnly gets down to business.
Mm-hmm. And what a treat we get to see Ogami. He's just stripped down to his Spanx and diaper and just have at this lady for the enjoyment of these pirates.
Yeah, rescuing her. He is truly a man of the people. And the sex scene is like super, super psychedelic. Where it's like lots of superimposed like body parts.
It is, but it's also shot very tastefully. In that, it's in this sort of very steamy room. Like he's giving, I don't want to call it classy, but he's giving some class to what would otherwise be a very tasteless scene.
Yeah, the only thing missing is a saxophone.
which is strange because this is the same guy who made Hanzo the Razor, and those movies are extremely tasteless.
Yeah. Those are ridiculous. Also,
you will watch
pretty rapey.
You will watch this man beat his dick with a mallet and then fuck a bag of rock salt. And I'm not even exaggerating or joking. That is what happens in those movies.
Yeah, he's got an iron dick.
Oh, it's terrible. But this is more like, it's a shades of Emmanuel.
Not wrong. So when they're done, the captives argue about what's going to happen to them. They are becoming hysterical at the thought of the bandits just murdering them all. Itto-san suddenly stands up, takes Daigoro to the hot springs for a bath.
I love this part because he just grabs the kid and like gets up and kind of walks off as if to be like, well, done with this bullshit.
Yep. So now Osen, the prostitute, follows them and intimates that she knows who he really is because she was previously in a town where an assassin swordsman with a child cut down 4 samurai, no problem. The suggestion is that she knows that he's here to kill the bandits.
Now, and this is she says in this scene, a woman like me only grows more miserable as she gets older. And I thought, God damn it, Japan.
I know there are movies. Actually, there are subplots of those same Shinobi no Mono movies where like Goemon like eventually sort of falls in love with a prostitute. And it's like him like the way that it's handled is like that he's rescuing her and shit like that. Like you see this stuff in American movies as well. I
mean, that's the thing. It's like I'm not judging them for it. I just don't like it.
No, I get you. So now elsewhere, the bandits are planning their assassination of the daimyo. It turns out that the bandits aren't Ogami's target. The Ronin assassins have subcontracted the kill out to them so that they won't be suspected in the assassination and their employers will be in the clear.
Hey, don't worry. He's going to kill all of them.
Doesn't fucking matter. You're all going to die. They call out all the hidden people from the homes into the streets and inform the people that they'll be leaving, but tell them not to say shit about them to the cops or they'll come back and massacre the place. Yeah. The travelers, the people who were in the house with Ogami, have to die, though, because they've seen their faces and will talk when they're out on the road. The cowardly samurai are the first to go. One of them is too sick and asks to commit seppuku with the bandit leader as his executioner, which causes the leader to remember where he'd seen Ogami before.
The guy's his theatrical coughing is fantastic because he's just like, oh no, I couldn't possibly. Oh dear.
Right. But the bandit leader suddenly becomes stricken with fear at the thought.
It's great because you could like see he's putting the pieces together and then he's like, oh shit.
Yep. So just then, in walks Ogami with the baby cart.
He's just kind of around the corner with his wheelbarrow, real slobby looking.
Yep. The knife bandit wants to kill him, but the leader commands him to leave Ogami alone. He ignores him and is about to throw a knife, but Ogami suddenly pulls one of the levers of the baby cart, revealing a sword, and throws it at the knife bandit.
And then it is all hell breaks loose. Ogami is pulling blades from everywhere.
And the baby cart just gets more elaborate and ridiculous as these movies go on.
Oh, it's hilarious. At one point, at the very end, it has like a machine gun in it. But the one guy, I don't know if it's the guy, the leader of the bandits. It's one of them. His name is Horse Slayer.
No. They keep calling Ogami the Horse Slayer because that's what his technique is. His weapon is it's called a dotanuki, which is a sword made by a particular maker, and they tend to be like a little longer, a little heavier because they're meant to chop cavalry at the legs.
Well, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, so when the cavalry comes in, he's got a sword that you can just chop a horse's legs off with.
Well, I hate that.
Yeah. So yeah, he then like pulls a bunch of levers, revealing a sword. Then he assembles more parts into like a naginata, which is like a spear, but with a sword at the end. And then he chops the legs off another bandit who attacks him.
And then he stabs the bandit leader in the chest. And the guy leans over and just pukes blood all over the camera.
It's so fucking rad. The guy with the weighted chain attacks and manages to disarm a part of Ogami's spear, but it only reveals another sword, which he uses to cut down more of the bandits until there's only the leader who begs for his life. And all
of this is done to this like sweet buzzed out guitar.
That's the thing, man. The soundtrack to this movie is amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that's either going to be, that has to be either Bruno Nicolai or Alessandroni. That's as far, like in my head, as far back as I can go, it's got to be one of them because it starts around the time of like Indio Black, which was a Yul Brynner Western, like a spaghetti Western. It starts around that time, and that's Bruno Nicolai, and I think that's where it comes from.
Gotcha. So now the actual targets of Ogami's assassination attack, and he kills the shit out of them too. The dude with the guns rushes out to the street to attack Ogami, and he tilts the baby cart upward, revealing a steel bottom, which repels the bullets.
Uses Daigoro as a shield.
And jumps over the baby cart, chops the gun dude in the head with his speared sword. Then he casually walks back into town and recovers Daigoro and the baby cart, and the two of them leave.
Hey, no thing.
Yeah. So then Osen chases them as they leave, but he stops her on the bridge, threatening to cut the support ropes.
Yeah, sorry, lady. Ogami has no time for love, only death on the demon way.
Yep, they continue walking on the demon way in hell. The end.
I fucking love these movies so much.
It is a crazy balance of like loud, quiet, loud.
Yeah,
it's like a Pixies song, really.
It really is, and you know what else I love? The Pixies.
It is, because when he's not whipping ass and like cutting heads off and shit, he is just silent. Usually he's got his eyes closed. He's just like in meditation while Daigoro like plays and shit. Like as they walk away, like they're sort of leaving town. There's like a bunch of monkeys and shit like that. There's like close up of Daigoro, just like absolutely delighted at the size of the monkeys.
He is joyful. And I think that's where I kind of, what I was saying earlier is that Daigoro is the key to why these work so well, because not only do they give us stakes, but throughout, and I've watched a fuckload of these, samurai movies, and most of them, even if you watch the Zatoichi movies, he's a very charming character, but even those get a little boring after a while because you're like, okay, you're doing the wandering samurai thing. Like you're the Ronin, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's okay. I get it. This is a combination of aesthetic, violence, and charm. And it's Daigoro that provides the charm because Ogami doesn't say much. Like he does. And like ladies are throwing themselves at him for some reason. And it would get really boring, but even in those quiet moments, it's like, all right, you get to watch this like little kid just kind of be delighted by watching whatever's around him. And that all of these things together create this series that is so thoroughly enjoyable. Like you get these explosions of violence that are, like I said, they're cathartic and exciting, and they're like kind of beautiful in their way. But the story is so complicated and dumb that I think even after the first one, they were like, well, never mind.
Right, because part 2 has none of the sort of political machinations. It is just, hey, Ogami Itto's kind of out of our power. Do you think you and your lady ninjas could kill him for us?
Yeah, like there's a thread that runs through all of them, but nobody gives a shit. But it's like it has this combination that none of the other ones have. And even like if you watch, like I said, Lady Snowblood is my favorite of all of them. The first one is so fucking awesome, even though it has terrible rapey scenes in it. The second one, you're like, okay, sure. Why not? But like eventually, because these are all series, and eventually you're like, there's nothing to these movies though. Otherwise, you need to have something. And I think adding a child is the something, even though I hate children and stuff. and by stuff, I mean everything.
Well, they also kind of eventually, like, this is beyond the scope of this movie, but they do eventually sort of go beyond your expectations because, like, he seems to be the vulnerability. He's the sort of the weakness in Ogami's chain, but like eventually, like, there are times when he's needs clever to sort of like wield the spear, or he needs to take care of his dad, who's just like overcome by like battle fatigue and shit.
Do you know what he is? He is the Ashley mission. You ever play Resident Evil 4?
No.
Okay. In Resident Evil 4, it is the quintessential companion game where you have a vulnerable companion who you have to protect against everything all the time.
I hate that shit.
And then every now and then there'll be like a cutaway, there'll be a cut scene, and you'll come back and now you are the companion because your weather guy got locked in a cage or whatever, and you have to navigate around, but you can't fight because you're a child or you're like a teenage girl. And that happens.
Yeah, they did that in The Last of Us.
Yes, and that happens to Daigoro a couple times where like he gets lost, and 25 minutes of the movie are dedicated to Daigoro just wandering around.
Yeah.
And it's like he's the thing that's breaking up the monotony of all of this. Just like the environments and the landscape are what's breaking up the monotony of the fight scenes. Because otherwise, it's just the same boring shit over and over again.
Yeah, you can really see that really is communicated very well, because the sort of the appeal of like the Mandalorian was the sort of the same thing, is that like the baby, like Grogu, the baby Yoda character, was way more than just like a fucking stuffed toy like option. Like eventually,
I mean, let's be honest, he's there to sell toys.
Oh god, yeah. Like the moment that, like, in the first episode when he's revealed, everybody was just like fucking puppy dogs, like going nuts over. Even me, I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me right now with that shit?"
I was like, "What is that?"
It's a baby Yoda. That's all you need to know.
Why did they shrank Yoda?
Yeah, he's got big eyes, big ears, and he's a little guy, and that is just a winning formula.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
But yeah, motherfucker, what a movie!
I fucking
God
love
damn, yeah.
Makes me want to.
You are hereby instructed to go and seek these movies out. They're not hard to find, and they are delightful. This movie, I believe, is a lean 82 minutes long too. Like a good deal of shit happens in that time too, and it won't have you sitting around very long. You could even probably take in a second one, and
take in. You should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I think it's on HBO. It's also they're on Criterion. If you don't have Criterion's channel, you should get it. It's the only thing I ever watch because I'm classy. This is my entry into these movies, and I was just like, I need all of them now. Where are all of these movies?
Right. Yeah. Anyways, what's coming up next?
Well, next week on Bring Me ZX.
This is the part that I fucked up at the beginning of the episode.
Yep, you sure did. We're going to be joined by a dear Canadian friend to celebrate Women's History Month, the Slumber Party Massacre. I fucked it up last time.
Oh,
Slumber Party Massacre.
Jesus Christ! This is what happens when we record these out of order.
It's true. It's like doing fucking math to figure out what's going on. That's what's happening there. 2 weeks, 99-cent rental. We're talking some splattery goodness that is the story of Rick.
Yeah, we're gonna hopefully everything works out. We're gonna have a great guest for that one. If you have never seen Story of Ricky,
I have not seen the Story of Ricky.
I cannot wait to hear what you think of this movie. This movie is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite. It is the quintessential Category 3 Hong Kong movie. It is blindingly violent.
For cultural reference, anybody who used to watch The Daily Show, the moment of Zen was a scene from The Story of Ricky.
Yeah, the guy getting his head crushed. It is a movie where a dude like literally punches holes in people. It's fantastic, and I cannot wait. We're going to basically be going insane the entire movie.
This is a rare one that I have not seen.
Yeah. So be back here. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll see you next week with Slumber Party Massacre, and in 2, where we get real crazy with it with Story of Ricky.
Amen.